Yes. Locally, we currently produce four types of sweets, four sweets. I wouldn't say types, but they are all hard candy. We don't produce any soft candy at the moment. So our hard candies are peanut brittle, babadudu. If you're from southwest Nigeria, that would probably be familiar to you. It was a street sweet that would I say went into extinction, but something that people were always curious about. So we made our version of it. So
Hello, everybody. You're welcome to Just for Women Africa. My name is Olaleko Amosa, the founder of Just for Women Africa. And before we start our show, do not forget to hit the like button, subscribe, tell a friend who knows a friend about Just for Women Africa. And today on the show, we're going to be doing something interesting and different. We're talking about candies, sweets. And today we have an interview. We have with us Andie Okon, all the way from Abuja, Nigeria. She's the CEO of Andies, Candies, based and an organization which has been around since 2012. Okay, so let's get started with the interview. You're welcome to the show, Andie.
thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. All right, before we get into Andies, Candies, could you tell viewers a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm Andie Okon, and I'm a Nigerian based in Abuja, Nigeria, and I'm just somebody that loves sweets, and I like opportunities to meet and interact with people, and I enjoy traveling, and I believe like there's so much to learn about the world out there. So I don't know if that's the kind of what tell me about yourself you want to hear, because I know people would typically go and tell about their career or their business or what they do, but that's me.
Okay, that's fine, entertainment. That's perfectly fine. Okay, so let's talk about Andy's Candies. When did this start, and why did you decide to open up a candy shop?
But no, I started Candies like when I introduced myself, like I said, because I love sweets. And we started it in the business formally started in 2013. I registered, but you were right when you said 2012 because I registered the company in 2012, but only commenced business in 2013 when I had received funding. So it started with me moving back to Nigeria, thinking of what opportunities I had. I was already working in investment banking, but I thought there was more that I could be doing. And one of my friends said, with how much you like sweets, maybe you should start a sweet company or you should do something about your love for sweets. So I was like, okay, maybe I can try and start a sweet company. And on my 25th birthday, she gave me money to register the company, which is what I did. And then after that, I think it was a lot of things that just had to do with providence and opportunity, because I think 2 months after that, somebody told me about a program that was running in Nigeria, You Win, which was Youth with Innovation and Enterprise in Nigeria. And I applied for the opportunity with You Win. What the program was that it was providing grants to 1,000 entrepreneurs with each cohort. It was providing grants to support their businesses. It could be that your business already existed or it was a new business. So I decided to apply for that in November of 2012. And by May 2013, I had found out that I won the UWIN program, a grant from UWIN. But prior to that, I had worked on a business plan, told my parents about the opportunity, about the business I wanted to get into, and my father said that he can't let me get into a business without a proposal or a business plan, that I had to work on a business plan, submit it to him for him to review, and he would give me feedback and excuse me, and based on that, fund it to an extent. So I can remember the first funding I received for my business was from my parents. Of It was 700,000 naira. That isn't much today, but it was somewhat valuable at the start of the business in 2013. So I used that to buy the initial resources that I needed to start up the business, and that was in March of 2013. And by May 2013 was when I found out I received the UN grant, and that was for 10 million naira, and that's what really helped establish the business.
Okay, so that's really quite interesting. So, first of all, when you found out that you won the grant from UN, how did you feel? And secondly, did you have any prior knowledge in knowing how to make sweets, or you had to go to school to learn how to make the candies?
Okay, so the first question, to answer the first question, it was very exciting. It was more shocking, I would say, than exciting. I was really surprised. I think I shed tears of joy. I was like, oh my God, I won. I won, you win. And so that was really exciting. Shared it with people that knew, because I obviously didn't tell so many people, since it was just something you were applying for, especially at the start of the business, and it was a business I was still trying to make sense of. So that was really exciting for me. And to your second question, I knew how to make sweets, but maybe not in the most technical way. I feel like every curious child probably knows how to make sweets. Probably pour sugar in a pan and mix it with milk and mix it with butter, a couple of things, and then you end up with toffee. Like when you think about the ingredients in sweets, so typically you might end up with burnt sweets. And I mean, in secondary school, we did this ridiculous thing of frying sugar on our irons. We weren't allowed provisions in my secondary school, and we used to fry sugar on our irons to get melted sugar that was like hard sweet, and we would lick that. Yeah, it sounds like a tragedy, but it was also but it was awesome. So I would say my first experience with making sweets was probably melting sugar on an iron, and then after that I just would be in the kitchen and mix sugar and butter, sugar and milk, and all of those sorts of things. It was just sometimes when I just wanted something sweet. And as a young Nigerian, we weren't really empowered financially to have our own money. Maybe your parents were saving money for you, and occasionally you might get pocket money on holiday, but typically you didn't have so much money to be spending. So you get innovative with what is in your kitchen to enjoy your sweets. So yeah, there was a little knowledge, and then I attended a candy masterclass, and that was in 2014. So it was a year later, and my business, to explain it doesn't focus on only making sweets. It didn't even start out with sweet making. It started out with candy buffet tables, which is setting up. So we were importing a lot of candy, and which is setting up candies for different occasions, all of life celebrations. We would do that in different colors. Say you have a wedding, and maybe the colors are white and gold. We'll do a candy table setting that is white and gold to complement the event or the theme of your event, and we would cater to your guests so people can come to the table and do a pick and mix of candy. So it really did start off as a service company before it evolved into a production company.
Okay, that's interesting to know, Andy. Okay, so we brings me back to my next question. What has the market been like to locally made sweets from Andies, candies, and do you export outside Nigeria?
So the market has been, it's been an interesting market. I would say I didn't start production till 2016. Yes, till 2016. So for the first few years, the first 3 years of running the business up until 2016, it was importing of sweets. And then with a lot of constraints, the business nearly ran to the ground between 2015 and 2016 due to some challenges we had with Nigeria customs and importing sweets, and the shipping company that we were using, the freight company that we were using. So that nearly ran the business to the ground, and that's what forced me to pivot. So that knowledge I already had, I was now kind of like forced to use it to start making sweets. And it was also at the time where the exchange rate started tumbling downwards. the naira began to lose value, so it was becoming more expensive to import, to focus on imports only for the business. So I had to think strategically as to what would be of value to the business and to attend to this market. So I knew how to make certain sweets, and I created a few other sweets as well. And we started producing those locally. So everything around the production aspect of our business is done locally. We source all our ingredients locally, and we do all of the production locally. We're still working on the packaging side of things because the main package is imported. The packaging is imported, but the printing and design is done here in Nigeria. So that's the aspect, because we don't have a robust packaging industry here for that caters to the kind of markets that I'm in. So it's been an interesting, I would say, the market, but in terms of the response from consumers, it's been really good. I think until the first challenge I was facing was probably convincing adults that sweets were not for children only. But it turns out, and like I mentioned with my own experience, children still don't have the spending power in Nigeria to buy sweets for themselves or do all of those things for themselves. So even if they want sweets, it's their parents that buy it for them. So you want to prepare, I had to think about creating a product that appealed to parents and would also appeal to children.
Okay, that's interesting quite to hear. Okay, I don't know much about sweets, but does Andies Candies have various flavors of sweets they sell and their names?
Yes. Locally we currently produce four types of sweets. Four sweets. I wouldn't say types, but they are all hard candy. We don't produce any soft candy at the moment. So our hard candies are peanut brittle, babadudu. If you're from southwest Nigeria, that would probably be familiar to you. It was a street sweet that went into extinction, but was something that people were always curious about, so we made our version of it. So it's not exactly like what was sold on the streets, because they had a technique to how it was made locally, so we just made a variant of it. And then we have peanut brittle is based on peanuts. We have another one called honeycomb. That's a popular peanut brittle and honeycomb are typical sweets you would also find internationally, but we made our local version of those sweets. Honeycomb is also made from honey, as the name implies, and it's called a honeycomb because when you break it, the inside has holes that kind of look like an actual honeycomb. And then we have our own original recipe, which is zobo lollipops, and we're currently working on a fifth product line called Tiger Nut Toffees. So that is we're still in the research and development aspect of that particular product.
Okay, that's good to know. So that's five
flavors.
Yes, five.
Five
Yeah.
flavors.
Okay.
Okay.
Five product flavors are the additions. Like, say I have zobo lollipops, for example, I can make them pineapple flavored or I can make them ginger flavored, but these are like the actual products.
Okay. So that'll be five products.
Yeah.
All right. So which brings me to my next question. You started off in 2012, 2013. What has it been like being a woman and running a business in an African country like Nigeria? Is the market supportive of women in business? Do they feel that women should not be in business? What is it basically like being a woman in business in Nigeria?
Okay, so I would say that I don't actively just think about myself as, when I was coming into business, I didn't think of myself as a woman doing business. I was a small business. I was just a business. I wasn't actively thinking, oh, I am a woman running a business, because I did not see it that way. And I wouldn't necessarily say the Nigerian market feels that way, because a lot of women here are empowered to start businesses. A lot of the businesses we hear about at on a smaller scale. So I think if the question is around maybe the business size or scale and how that relates to being a woman, then I would explain that better. But in terms of small and medium enterprises, you tend to find a lot of women-owned businesses tend to fit into that category. I would say it's the greater challenge is women being able to compete in the larger market for like capital intensive type of businesses. So larger scale businesses is where you might not see as much of a presence for women. But in the smaller scale businesses, it's definitely not defined, is not necessarily defined by gender. There is opportunity for you to thrive. And the challenges we face in business are the same challenges that men in small scale businesses, in small businesses, in SMEs as well face such challenges. I think a lot of the time where you would potentially see it kind of mattering for reasons best known to people, if you're a woman or not, is probably when you're doing business with the government. Excuse me, is when you're doing business with the government. That's a lot of the time where you might experience chauvinism or masochist behavior. It's typically when you want to get into business with the government, or even working as a regular employee of an organization, having to do that people facing is when you need to do interfacing. So with my type of business, I've also been intentional about not necessarily putting my face out all the time on the business, not because I'm a woman, but because I want people to identify with the product and not necessarily identify with the owner of the product. So anybody can like the sweets because I love sweets and this brand serves me in this way. Because it's possible that somebody that dislikes you comes across your candy and wouldn't want to buy it because they know you and they don't like you. So I want people to have the opportunity to experience the product without knowing who owns the product. So it's never really mattered to me, but definitely in Africa, in certain other sectors and in certain aspects of doing business, because I'm dealing in production products, it's easier not to focus on who runs the business. But where it comes to rendering services, for example, is where there's a lot of interfacing, and then you would hear all those questions of, oh, is there a man that I can speak to? Is there, that's where you face those sorts of challenges where it's a soft service that you're rendering in terms of maybe consulting, advisory, those type of things, or any business that maybe is contractual, those type of businesses are where you might see greater challenges for women to participate.
Okay, that's good. That's great to hear. In 2020, there was a pandemic, COVID, which affected businesses globally. People don't. A lot of businesses were affected, but a lot of people don't hear the stories. What was it like doing business during COVID, and how did you go around your challenges and all?
During COVID, it was doing business was very interesting because when it happened, so if you remember, I said we also render the candy buffet service. So it was that aspect of the business that really took a hit because, of course, you couldn't have parties. So we had a lot of bookings. As of March 2020, we had bookings that were reserved, and people had to cancel. We had to refund businesses. So we had to refund customers, not businesses. We had to refund customers because they couldn't have their parties. Some customers were a lot more understanding because they still wanted to have their celebrations. So they would say, no, there's no need to refund me. Hold on to the money. We're probably going to have this event later in the year. This will probably pass in a month's time or in 2 months' time. It took a lot longer, and I think that was surprising for many people to process. There was a customer that we had her event maybe 7 months after, maybe in November, as against it being in March, for example. She refused to collect her money. She said that she still wants to have this event whenever it happens, whenever COVID passes. So there was that shift that we had to do. And then in April of 2020, the entire business as a whole did suffer. I think people were very apprehensive, still trying to make sense of the situation that we were all in globally. So we weren't even receiving online orders. People were not placing orders. People were not doing anything. I think people were just in panic mode and trying to make sense of just being stuck at home. So in April of 2020, we made zero naira. But at the same time, we still had staff, we still had people to pay. So I think we just removed a percentage of their salaries. I believe we just removed a percentage of their salaries, maybe potentially what would have been costing them to commute. I think we removed maybe 20%, or they were almost paid in full, the staff, because it was also trying to make sense of the situation that these people that we employ would probably they definitely don't have any other means. How were their families, how were they going to feed their families? So we had to give that consideration, that whether or not, because if I thought about it and maybe the business was actively running but we were not performing well as a business, we would still be forced to pay those people because they're in employment with us. But the team was very understanding of it, and somehow towards the end of April, people started placing orders for May. So things swung back into business. But in the meantime, I, on my end, was looking for opportunities that could help with the recovery for the business. So I saw that Facebook was giving out grants to support businesses. At first, they weren't given to African countries, but later in the year, they opened up and started giving to African countries. For Nigeria, it was the equivalent of $1,000. So I applied for that, and they gave $1,000 in cash, and I think about the equivalent in ad credits. And those ad credits, even much more than, so why I was even able to afford paying my staff for the next couple of months was the cash that they gave us was able to take care of some of the operating costs of the business. And then for advertisements, we had at least, I think, 400,000 naira in ad credits, or 300,000 naira in ad credits. So we were actively advertising for the next couple of months, and it wasn't hard for us to recover. So in terms of recovery, I would say since COVID, we've made the most money that we've made on an annual basis. Since after COVID, we've been making much more than we ever did before COVID. And the other thing we did was Nursal, which is a bank here. Would I call it microfinance? Maybe it's a microfinance bank, but it's a CBN one. They were giving loans to businesses to support them with COVID recovery. So these were single-digit COVID loans. The percentage was, I believe, 8%, 8 or 9%. So it was waived in terms of there was a moratorium of 18 months or 12 months. So you could apply for whatever amount you felt that your business needed to get back into business, to bounce back. And my company received 1.8 million from the government in form of a loan, and we're paying that back over 3 years. So on average, it works out about 50,000 naira a month to pay back. So it was negligible in terms of the value that was going to give us at the time to be able to recover as a business.
Okay, that's really good to know, Andie. All right, so we're about to round up the interview. What is the future for Andies Candies?
So the future of the company is expansion into exports. I just realized I didn't answer your question around exports. You did ask that earlier on. So we haven't started exporting. We got our NAFDAC certifications only last year. That was a long, tedious journey, but we got there. And we have it for 3 of the products, so not all 5. One is still in production, and we're working on getting the NAFDAC products for the Zobo lollipops as well. So our products were still made to order for the most part up until we got NAFDAC, and now we're on shop shelves. So we've expanded to supplying to supermarkets within Nigeria, and as we get into our 10th year, which is next year, one of our targets is really to get into the international market, and that's a lot of work, but it's a lot of work to get into the international market because it's also going to involve making sure that your packaging is food gradable, that a food gradable standard that works for the different countries that you potentially want to export to. So you have to give, for the US, for example, you have to give consideration to the FDA. The UK also has its regulations, and countries across Africa have all their regulations. So it's an interesting thing, but we're also going to be seeking the support of Nigeria's Export Promotion Council, NEPC. We're definitely going to be speaking to them. They have support for small businesses, so we're going to be speaking to them on guidance on what to do around our packaging to ensure that it's ready for exports. So that's one of our biggest priorities for the next year.
Okay, Andy, that's really great to know. Okay, so our viewers out there who are watching, who enjoy the interview, who enjoy Andie's Candies, and would love to get hold of your products, could you give us your contact details, please?
Oh, sure. You can visit our website at www.andiescandies.com.ng, and you can also follow us on Instagram. Our biggest market is Instagram. We get a lot of orders directly from Instagram and also from our website. Our Instagram handle, which is consistent across all social media, is Andies Candies NG. So that's ANDIESCANDIESNG is our social media handle on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook as well.
Okay, Andy, that's great to know. What is the last question before we end the interview? What's your advice to women out there who want to go into business, but they feel that it's a man's world, financing is a challenge, it's just a struggle? What's your advice to women in Nigeria and all over Africa?
I would say dive into the deep end, take the plunge. Start off. It shouldn't be your fear. Your fear is what should even drive you. I know it sounds cliche, do it afraid, but it is true. You should do it afraid. And because I feel like there's a wealth, there are people you can reach out to and learn from. There are a lot of women and men that have reached out to me on social media asking questions. I've advised about 3 to 5 people on starting candy businesses, somebody in the UK, somebody in Ghana, about 3 people in Nigeria. So ask questions. You'll be surprised how willing people are to share their knowledge. It's not everything that is supposedly a trade secret. So I'm definitely not going to give you the recipe to say Zubo lollipops, for example. But I can give you guidance. I will tell you where to look, where to source for things, what challenges you might face, what considerations you need to make, what business plans. So I would say ask questions. People are more willing to share their stories than even just coming here on interviews. You can reach out to people directly, and with how open the internet is, it's people are a lot more approachable and reachable than they used to be in the past. So I would say do that. And for people starting businesses, it's very, very essential that you have a business plan. I would really commend the UWIN program that I was a part of. So it wasn't just about getting money from the government. It was a two-phase project and program. And the first phase, when you initially apply, you submit a business summary. And after that, you go through a series of trainings and workshops done by the government. It was the UWIN project program was in partnership with the World Bank. So it was a very detailed learning journey for us. We had training for about a week, and then after that you would give a more detailed business plan that included financial forecasting, financial statements. So something else that did help me was that I had a background in investment banking, so I knew a bit about finance, and I also had a network where there were chartered accountants that I could speak to about structuring and forecasting financial statements. So I would say because I went through that journey at the start, I knew what was valuable and what was important. And with UWIN, they didn't give you the money all at once. They gave it in tranches, and you had to meet certain deliverables or certain targets before that trigger the payment of each tranche. And one of the most important things was keeping all of your receipts and accounting for all of those receipts. So they ensured that you were as thorough as possible with your bookkeeping. And that's something that people tend to be very careless about. But your bookkeeping is really important, and separate your business from your own personal identity. So don't use your personal account to receive funds for your business, because when it now comes to things like paying for your taxes or giving accounts or for applying for loans like I did, or for grants, because when you want to receive, when there are all of these opportunities, they do ask for your financial statements, and you can't present your personal account as your financial statement for a business. So if you want to be able to compete in that market from the get-go, you want to ensure that those structures around your finances, around your business are put in place, and you definitely separate your personal identity from your business's identity.
Okay, Andy, that was good to know. All right. Thank you a lot for coming on the show. We wish you all the best with Andie's Candies, and we look forward to chatting, doing another interview with you again in the future.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Just for Women Africa.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, guys, we're watching Just for Women Africa, and to the next show from Andie and I in Abuja, it is bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, Andie.